Hello everybody, Dan TCP, the Criminal Violin here. Welcome to Chatterbox, episode 3. I'm actually recording this out of order because I'm recording this episode before episode 2. Episode 2 is going to be all about Atlas because of episode 1, which actually just went live at 2 p.m. Pacific time today, the day I'm recording it, which is going to be tomorrow now, which is the 7th of January 2019. Yay! Anyway, episode 3 is going to be dedicated purely to this last season of Doctor Who. If you can't already tell by the title, the biggest thing is going to be talking about why the BBC and their fraudulent bullshit and PR and PA, when it comes down to their explanation for why they felt they had to dumb down the writing in the series to apparently the levels of chin balls. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean Chibnall. No, I mean chin balls. Because let's be honest, that's a more accurate name at this point. Like, come on. I mean, Step Hen Muffin was our last writer, but he was actually pretty good, as muffins tend to be. But that's a different story. Anyway, welcome to Chatterbox. Welcome to this episode 3. Let us get into it and begin. As many probably know, Doctor Who is something where if you're a true fan of it, I mean, you're dedicated to the series and you're always super into it. And even when you don't really necessarily believe in, say, the current changes that just happened, it either eventually grows on you or you just simply write it out while trying to watch it, hoping at some point it's actually going to get good again. It's going to get to where it should be. This season, I can guarantee everybody, it is not gonna go down at any point in time as a good season, except to those type of parents that are the ones who, or like maybe at max and across the world, the 100 parents that got livid and complained to the producers of Sesame Street that they had to forcefully change against, because they said so, basically. They changed the Cookie Monster into the Veggie Monster because basically they felt like Sesame Street should be doing their job as a parent, which is already fucked beyond belief, but that's basically what it was. And so now we have the Veggie Monster instead of the Cookie Monster because Cookie Monster is just setting such bad eating examples for our children, and that's your responsibility to set good examples for your audience, which is our children. You're the parents, not us. We just happen to conceive them. Yeah, I have my own bitterness towards that, but that's a different story. Basically, that's what this feels like, though. It's what the BBC, if they really did have any complaints, it's a massively tiny minority. Like, when I say massively tiny, I mean it's just stupidly minute, the amount of people that it could possibly be that would have said, Stephen Moffat, you write way too complex and complicated. I can't follow. You must dumb it down. I can't do this. I also can't drink any coffee unless it's basically water. Like, yeah, we get it. You suck ass and you're an absolute boring idiot. Like, get the hell out. The concept of somebody complaining about Doctor Who being too complex and too complicated is like walking up to a mirror and suddenly having a panic attack because you had an epiphany that you see yourself. It's a reflection. What the fuck? You don't say. No shit, Sherlock. That's exactly exactly what this is. But with the whole concept of people complaining that it was too complex and complicated, Doctor Who was writing. It's like, that's, first off, total bullshit. If anybody complained about that, again, it's going to be the world's most minutely nanoscopic sized minority of supposed fans you could possibly conjure up and imagine. The fact of the matter is, the BBC said, oh, well, these fans, this was their excuse, like, we had a large portion of our fan base say it was written way too complicated. Complete, utter bullshit. Here, I award you, BBC, this emblem for your official department of bullshit, which is clearly where that excuse came from, because complete lies. Total shit. Like, absolute crap. And, Jesus Christ. Let me just say, it's like, it is just like that whole mirror concept, or, analogy. It's like, no shit, Sherlock. Like, in other words, duh, obviously, you think? Of course it's gonna be what it is. Doctor Who is gonna be written, and it has to be written. It needs to be written. It's required to be written. It absolutely 100 billion% has to be written in a complex, complicated fashion. That's the fucking point. That's what makes it also so engaging, so interesting, and so much fun to watch and talk about. Especially considering the season, this is the way it always was that a season always had what would be called a season arc. And that's kind of like a character arc, except it's a season arc. You can even have an arc, a plot arc inside of a movie. You can have it inside of a single episode. In Doctor Who, you have it inside of each individual episode, but over the course of the season, slowly but surely, each episode slowly connects with the other arcs of the other episodes and the other plots, until by the finale episode of that season, you finally, if you didn't figure it out because of the, again, complicated, complex writing, you find out exactly what that arc was leading to. What is this entire set of episodes and season leading to? And then how then it starts again? How do you start speculating and wondering, I wonder how the next season is going to start. It could start this way, it could start that way, blah, blah, blah. This person or this character could come up, or this creature could suddenly launch an invasion. I don't know. Like, there's all sorts of different things. And that's how it's supposed to be written. It's exactly like that. And also, to emphasize how much total lies, fraudulent bullshit they conjured with that excuse of, oh, it's too complex. So many people said we write way too complex, so we had to just water it down. There's another prime example, because that's specifically talking about Stephen Moffat and his time writing for Doctor Who. Stephen Moffat, or Stephen Muffin, whatever you want to call him, since we're calling Chibnall chin balls, we might as well call him Muffin. So Mr. Muffin actually wrote so well. The proving point of why he wrote so well, yes, he had a cliche. Now, the one thing that people complain about, I will just go off on this just for a moment. The one thing people consistently complained about, fans consistently complained about Mr. Muffin and his writing, is the fact that he had, every writer seems to have a specific cliche. It's like somebody having a catchphrase, or I don't know, an actor having a specific thing they do in every role they do that just makes it their own. That is what writers have too. They kind of have their own little cliche that they like to, that they always implement in every single thing they write. In this case, with screenwriters, it's not kind of, it's as blatant as it can be. In a book, it may not necessarily be as obvious, but in screenwriting, it's very apparent. Especially when you're so into a series like Doctor Who, it's very, very apparent. The complaint that they had is his cliche was always making you so attached to a character, just knowing he knew it and everybody else knew it, he was going to write them out in some tragic manner, dramatic way, and then write it in such a heart-tugging manner, and then a little bit later, a few episodes down the line, or maybe, a few episodes down the line, because that's, a handful down the line, and suddenly they make a recurrence, and somehow, some way, some fashion, they're there again. Whether it's, like, somehow memory in their heads that they keep getting haunted by, or some creatures supplanting it in their heads, or they're conjuring or mimicking them, or they somehow manage to crash into a different dimension or something, and suddenly, kind of like, with David Tennant, and suddenly he, for the second or third time in a row, finds Rose again, and it so happens that he crashes back right where he put his cloned self and Rose at in that one dimension and planet in space and time. And then, like the third time, suddenly, there's Rose again. No, here we go. And then by the end of the episode, of course, heart tug, oh god. And it's like, That was his cliche. He just couldn't help himself. He always had to bring back everybody he made the cast and the characters and thus the fans like get attached to so deeply, and then he does it in such a heart, tugging melodramatic fashion, intention. That's his cliche. That's his catch. That's who he is. That's his signature. That was what people complained about, was constantly having that. It does get kind of old after a while because it's coming. That's the one thing that makes certain things about his writing predictable. You just knew it was going to happen, and you kind of had an idea of where in the season it was going to happen, especially depending on when he wrote out a character. It was just inevitable. But getting back to the point I was going to make is the fact that, again, showing why it's complete bullshit and fabricated lies that BBC came up with for that excuse that it's too complex and complicated of writing, that Stephen Moffat did. Think about the most famous, well-recognized, most talked about, most referenced, and most highly recommended episodes for anybody to watch, whether they've seen any Doctor Who before or not. And then think about the writer. Think about the Doctor. Who was it? The writer was Stephen Moffat. Pretty much guaranteed every time, because arguably the most highly recommended episode throughout either series of Doctor Who, the original or this modern aged one, is The Weeping Angels. Don't Blink, Don't Blink. That's the episode name. Everybody says, whether you've seen the series or not, you have to see Don't Blink if you haven't seen it, because everybody loves the shit out of that episode with the Weeping Angels. And it makes perfect sense. It's a great, perfectly written episode. And that was the episode, in fact, that had the whole timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly thing that stuck with me personally, that they had David Tennant explain time as, which was great. I loved that. Timey-wimey, wibbly. It just explained time perfectly. Like, it just ends it like, it's complicated. Let's not ever talk about that. That was the same episode. But that's a Stephen Moffat episode. Not only did he produce that episode, obviously, but he also just so happened to be the lead writer of it, because that's arguably the most famous episode of either series of Doctor Who ever, because you never stop hearing about that. And when somebody hasn't ever seen the series before, either one, they always first recommend you to see Don't Blink, because they know that'll probably get you hitched immediately, because it's so profoundly interesting, and just all the different things in the background that you'll slowly notice over time that they implement it just adds to the perfection and the interestingness of it, and it adds to the effect it has on hitching to you in your memory, and the impact it makes just has a more impact because of the little details and little things in the background that you may or may not notice the first time you watch it. It's so cool. And that's a Stephen Moffat produced and written episode. And there's just a handful of others that he wrote that are, again, always highly recommended to people. And and people always look back on so fondly. Stephen Moffat came in, if I recall correctly, with the Ninth Doctor. Either that or he came in with Tennant. I can't remember if he came in with the Ninth or with David Tennant, which is the 10th Doctor. I can't remember which. But, point is, he was there for a long time, and then he went out, obviously, with Peter Capaldi, so that you could suddenly have Jodie Whittaker. And, unfortunately, chin balls over here, writing for kindergartners through 3rd grade. To teach them their moral obligations and lessons. Giggity. Let's get politically correct, children. This season is not just simply less complicated. It's pointless. There's literally no content in it. It's like the one I keep going back to when I think about the prime example of just how there is no real plot. It's like a sheet going over, you're pulling a sheet over a tin, an empty tin, and that's your episode. That is what Chinballs does, or Chinballs has done. Chibnall, whatever you want to call him, just in case you're suddenly like, wait, his name's not Chinballs, it's Chibnall, you fuck. You're so disrespectful. There's the go, whoop, right over the top of your head. But yeah, no, yeah, of course it's Chibnall, okay, Jesus. Yes, but chin balls, that's what he does. He basically tugs a little pillowcase over the top of an empty tin, and he's like, ha, there's your episode, enjoy. Completely blank and void of any purpose, of any point. It's empty. And the most empty episode, like, perfect prime example that fits that description as impeccably as possible with him was, I think it was episode 3 or 4. That was the Ghost Monument episode. The Ghost Monument episode, I almost spaced out. In fact, I did zone for, I think, like 2 minutes of it straight at one point near the middle, because it's just... And then after I look at it, especially after now enough time has passed and I watched the entire season, I look back and I'm like, there was absolutely no point. What the fuck did I just watch? What did I just waste my time on? Like, not because it wasn't, you didn't have so much, like, it sounds weird to say, but the best thing you can describe it as is it's not so much that it's boring as it's just completely null and void of anything and everything. It's just badly written because there's absolutely no point. There's no plot. There's no point. There's no substance to it. It's just empty. It's that empty tin with a sheet covered over it, pulled over it, and that's what you get as an episode with him. That's what you got there. The best episodes that were produced just so happened to have other writers writing with him, or actually having more writing than him on the episodes. There was some episode, I can't remember which one, in the middle. It might have been the Arachnids in the UK, I can't remember. But in the middle of the season, and then if I recall correctly, the New Year's Eve special at the very least had I don't think he wrote, or at least he wasn't the only writer, but every single episode, including the New Year's Eve one, which is arguably the best, along with the last episode of the season, actual season finale, still were kind of void of plots. And then another thing is that Mandip Gill's character doesn't have a point for existing or even being present at all anywhere within the story. There's another thing with Doctor Who is obviously they're really good at making heavily complex, complicated, in-depth character arcs that slowly build from the season premiere with the new characters over until whenever they eventually get dismissed. He didn't write any point, any basis, any reason for her character's existence. There's no character arc for her character whatsoever. Like, you could just suddenly get rid of Mandip and you wouldn't necessarily notice a difference, because he didn't create any purpose for her character's existence. She just happens to be there. Like, what the heck? Tosin's character, it's kind of in between the absolutely no arc Mandip and then Bradley Walsh's character, who is by far the best character, even over Jodie Whittaker, or the Doctor's character, is by far the best character and actor in the entire thing. Tosin's like kind of in the middle, a little more towards Mandip, but he's kind of right there in the middle between the two. In fact, if not dead center between the two, between not having any character arc and having a character arc, the best fleshed out, which is what Bradley's character has that Mandip has nothing of. So Tosin's character was pretty good. Bradley's character has an arc, but imagine a character arc being written like that of a really heavily rusted out, wacky, windy, high-speed roller coaster that has been abandoned for 50 plus years, hasn't been touched for 50 plus years. Again, ultra rusty, decayed. And somebody says, it's still standing. Let's go ride it. Let's test it out. Let's have some fun. And so they turn it on and they start riding it. As the thing starts falling to pieces as they're going high speeds, right past, just as they pass over the piece that suddenly then buckles. Imagine that, and that's Bradley's character's arc. How it was written. It's like, it has high points that are kind of good, that are really, really good, and well fleshed out, and then suddenly it just almost nothing, and then there's a little something, and eventually you're basically going to die. Because eventually everything's going to fall out from under you. Unless you learn how to write, basically. a lot of people are saying is that to Chinballs is that he doesn't know how to write. It's not that he writes badly or that he doesn't know how to write. It's that he writes his writing style and writing skill and everything, and the way he writes is 100 billion% perfect for preschooler through third grade kid shows. That's how he writes. That's his style. That's his niche. That's the way he kind of words things and stuff. Everything about how he writes is perfect for, like, if you wanted to rebirth Barney the big purple dinosaur. Hey kids, I just fresh out of prison. Who wants some cuddles? Like that's basically, I don't know what that was, but anyway, that's the point though. Is like he writes like he could rebirth Barney. Like he doesn't. He writes for that kind of thing, or he could suddenly make up a cheap knockoff of no. And it wouldn't. You would not notice. You would suddenly think he's a great writer because he's perfect for kids, little kids and toddlers. He's horrible for things like Doctor Who. Absolutely hideous. So it's not that he's a bad writer. It's just that they picked the worst possible person they could have possibly chosen to write and produce the show. It's so bad, and especially in comparison to having Mr. Muffin be replaced by Chinballs, and so you suddenly go, beep. You get hit by a fucking brick wall at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's like, the fuck am I watching now? What the hell just happened? It's like you're not even watching Who anymore. You're watching Spy Kids gone spatial? Like, what? It's weird. I hate it though. It's mind-numbing to watch it and think. You really just know that with the bullshit that BBC is pulling now, specifically Doctor Who, it feels almost inevitable that they're gonna try and push the blame onto the cast and not the producers and the writers, and then fire Jodie and Mandip and everybody else and keep on Chinballs. Like, but they did great! No, they fucking didn't! Yeah, they did great if you're, like, obsessed with, let's teach the kiddos about proper morals and good life lessons of what not to be. Arachnids in the UK, remember, don't be like Trump. Good for you. I think just about everybody in existence, except for the few that actually think believe he's a legitimate godsend, know that, yeah, you don't fucking support or want to be around or even be anything like a Donald J. Trump, obviously. Good for you, though. Good for you. You didn't do Doctor Who. You just sort of made up a cheap knockoff of Donald Trump and said, don't be like him, kids. Thanks. I couldn't have thought of that myself. Like, I don't understand why. Why did they feel the need to do this? They didn't just go politically correct. No, they went full on kids politically correct levels. Like, it feels like they're literally talking down and trying to basically insult the true Whovians, the true dedicated Doctor Who fans, by having him write the show and produce it. So here's my thing to the BBC is, don't you fucking dare even hesitate to have a fleeting thought about firing any of the cast. Keep them on board, because you damn well know it's not their fault. It's 100 billion% your writers and your producers that you so intentionally picked because you want it to be PC. I didn't even have a problem with them being PC, technically, as long as they wrote it as it should be, as a typical complex, subtle, and complicated Doctor Who writing episode. Which means you can be PC and maybe put your little moral obligation messages in there and your little teaching lessons, but make it goddamn subtle and make it actually fit the season and episode arcs. Another thing they decided to do with life after Mr. Muffin, with Mr. Chinballs, is they decided they wanted to apparently pretend they're Netflix and have only 10 episodes per season, and then make people wait over a year for the next season to come out. Are they trying to slaughter the show from existence? Are they trying to make themselves get to a point where they have to cancel? That's a legitimate question, because like it's next to guaranteed next to nothing that anybody from the BBC would ever listen to any of this or watch any of this. If you do, and if you still are here, seriously, it's absolutely sincere. You are in, whether you're intentionally doing it or not, which I'm sure you are in heading a billion miles an hour down a path of this show's going to get canceled again. It's going to go down the hill. It's going to be defamated. It's going to be hated. Why? You're going to come up with your excuses, as you have recently, by trying to say this is why you need chin balls, Mr. I write water for children. Like, you know. But the fact of the matter is, it's you. It's 100 billion% your despicably horrid choice of hiring a children's writer, practically. He might as well be, because he's perfect for that job description, to write PC, morally obligated, watered down episodes that are so watered down, they don't even have an arc, they don't have a plot point, they don't have a reason for existence, and he doesn't even give a reason for one of the main characters and companions of the show to exist. You're writing the show right out of existence right now by your fucked choices. Seriously. If anybody at the BBC is listening at any of this, as a dedicated Who fan, and same with, I've talked with not just my brother, who's been a lifelong Who fan, you know, but I'm talking about, like, so many different people. Even he talks about how he's been on all the different Doctor Who forums. Same stuff over and over and over. Fire Chibnall, because he fucking sucks. Stop trying to be so PC. Get rid of your producers, not just your writer team, and especially Chinballs, because he's the number one reason why this show is fucked right now. And actually fix your crap. Get it back to how Doctor Who has always been and how it's supposed to be. And my addition is, again, don't you dare fire a single cast member, because it is not one slightest bit their fault. It is 100 billion% you, BBC, your fault. Your goddamn fault, because you decided you had to write. You had to be. I don't even know how to explain it at this point. It's so dumbed down that my brain can't even figure out how to explain it in simple, easy to understand terms without looping through the same thing I just said twice in a row. Like, fire your writers, fire your producers, get people who actually are dedicated to Doctor Who, who always have been, and that are diehard fans, that are really good writers and producers, to actually get back on the show. Even if you have to hire some back, do it, so we can actually have a good, you know, Doctor Who series that's actually proper Who, rather than, let's go, kids, it's time to learn more lessons. Like, it's not, your show's not for that. It's supposed to be complex. It's supposed to be complicated. Why? Because that's the fucking point. It's supposed to engage the audience, make them wonder what's going on, who's going to come around that corner, what the next episode's going to bring, what the next season's going to bring, you know. You cannot possibly breed or make that without kicking this philosophy in this direction to the goddamn incinerator and burn it in fire from existence. Make sure it can never exist again. Because this is a dire error you've made. This is the dire, deformed, you know, error that you've made that I can't even begin to properly express, because it's so obscenely overboard despicable. Especially considering you're the BBC. You with this season, I'm not kidding. You're making Hollywood look like they know what they're doing and they're doing a good job, when Hollywood's famous for just repeating and rehashing the exact, and I mean the exact same clone of every single thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, where you never ever see anything new. You never hear anything new, because when you do, nobody else sees it. Why? Because it flumps. It fails. Why? Because Sadly, in the US, most people, they don't like anything to change. They want it to be exactly the same as it's been since like 1972. You know, it's pretty much since all the blood, the gore, the sex, and the crude humor and everything else started in Hollywood. And that's the only way you're going to get a good critical review either from critics here. But you're making Hollywood look good. Like they know, like they're doing better than you with this. And that's, I can't even come up with a word to explain how screwed up that is and how wrong that is. There's a reason why I prefer things from the BBC, why I prefer things from any of the British film, TV, and movie creators and producers and networks. It's because of the fact that you guys have variety. You try new things. You do stuff, and you actually have some funny stuff and really good content and talent and true chemistry. Whereas here, it's just the same people, the same scripts, the same writers, the same directors, the same cliches, the same plot points, the same arcs, the same everything. And you're now doing that stuff. And you're trying to suck up to the people who are hypersensitive. And yes, most of the world is very hypersensitive now. Which is all the more reason not to suck up to a soul. Just keep doing what you're doing. No matter what the frick you choose to do, BBC, guaranteed there's going to be a massive group of people that are going to be livid with you. That's just being existent is that way now. It could potentially be offensive to people. That's literal too. That's an absolute fact. You know, like as an individual, as a group, as a team, or as a production company, or an agency or whatever. So in this case, you guys, you're gonna piss people off. You're gonna offend people no matter what you say, no matter what you do at any point, at any time, somewhere in the world, guaranteed. Because humanity is ultra hypersensitive about everything right now. That's just how it is. That's all the more reason, again, to accept it, that you're just going to piss off some people. You're not going to get everybody. You're not going to please everybody. And so just say, F it, we're going back with the typical Who stuff. Whether or not there's a certain group that are like, no, it's too complex, I'm offended. Oh, it's too complicated. Oh, there's too many white males. Oh, there's too many this. Oh, there's too many that. Oh, there was a sexual reference. That's offensive. Oh, there's not enough gayness in it. Oh, da, da, da. Whatever, there's not enough religious aspect, or there's not enough atheist aspect, or there's not enough da 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 da. Like, just write Who as it's meant to be written. Get back to it. Fire Chinballs. Fire his teams. Thus fire the producers. Keep all of the cast. Give them a goddamn fair chance. And also, kick the Netflix styling to the curb. Seriously, you're not Netflix, BBC. Don't suddenly go to a 10-episode format and then make people wait over a year for more Who. It doesn't make any sense that you would do that. It absolutely has no logic to it. And there's not a damn excuse you can come up with to excuse yourself for any of this that you're doing right now. Any of it. Seriously. Or you are going to cause this show to go down in utter chaotic flames. And you will have to cancel it, and you will have a hell of a lot of dedicated Whovians that will be livid with you. Because they know that you know damn well what you're doing, what you should be doing, which isn't what you're doing now, and that you're intentional. You're taking the show down into its grave again. Why? Well, yeah, why? Like, seriously. It doesn't make any sense. That said, yes, the season, easily the worst ever in the history of Doctor Who, and some of the most boring, pointless, what the hell am I watching content I've ever seen. And when I say content, I mean that in the broadest spectrum. I mean that in online videos, whether it be on YouTube or in live stream format or on a news site or on, something like Netflix or I don't know, Pluto TV, or even on TV itself, or on a movie network, or at the theaters. It's seriously some of the most pointless, empty, boring stuff I've ever watched. It's nothing remotely related or close to Who at all. Fix your crap. Seriously. Because you know better than this. And you're not doing yourself, the show, or the true Whovians any kind of a service by writing for children and trying to be PC. Just get back to true Who nature and let all this shit go. Seriously. Because it's effed. With that, I hope everybody has actually gotten the gist of this episode 3 of Chatterbox and enjoyed it. Again, in a pretty much otherworldly settings of unlikeliness that I'd have anyone from BBC ever listen to any of this, or hear any of this, or get a clip of it, pay any attention to it, or listen through. If I do, perfect. I hope you guys especially get the idea, get the gist. Literally go through all your different forms online and be bluntly, harmfully honest with yourself and everybody else. Own up to your bullshit that you're pulling right now and fix it. Because we are not having it. Otherwise, to everybody else, let me know your opinions down below. Let me know what you want to see from it and what you thought of Chibnall's writing in this season, and thus this season of Doctor Who. And VC, I hope to see you in the next episode of Chatterbox. Do be sure to leave a like, comment, and submarine sandwich. If, of course, you feel obligated, if you feel like you wish to let me know if you enjoyed the episode or not, and you want to interact or let me know what you thought or anything like that. And I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe, stay fluffy, have a great night everywhere, and goodbye, everybody.